think we can get started. So I'll call the meeting to order. Karen, could you do a roll call?
Yeah. Okay, Mrs. Higgins.
Here.
Mr. Kapler.
Here.
Mr. Laub.
Here.
Mr. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Nemes.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we'll have a flag salute.
Getting a flag up now.
Okay, I pledge allegiance to the
To the flag of the
United
United
States
States
of
of
America,
America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so this is a regular meeting of the Fredon Township Board of Ed held for the purpose of transacting regular board business. The Open Public Meetings Act of 1975 was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies. In accordance with this act, notice of this meeting was adopted on January 5th. Notice was also published in the New Jersey Herald, the Daily Record, and posted in the board office and on the district website. So on the agenda, we are not going to go into executive session at this time. So we'll skip over that. Okay, so we're going to actually move into the budget presentation. I'll be handing that over to Matt and Karen to do that presentation. And immediately after that, we'll go into public comment. So folks can just make note of any questions they have on the budget presentation. We can address those right after that. So Matt, Karen, thank you both very much for your hard work on the budget. I know these are challenging times, but I know the board has all had a chance to review the budget, and we're very pleased with what you guys have done. So at this point, if you could present that to the township, that'd be great.
Okay, just a couple of housekeeping items before I switch over to the screen present. What we're going to do during this presentation is we're going to record the presentation as Karen and I are presenting it. That way we have a recording and we'll be able to share it with members of the community that might not have been able to attend. James DiGataldo was presenting. We can't do that.
James is doing the presentation?
Yeah, there we go. So the first thing is, so we're going to be recording. So if everybody could please mute and please stay out of the chat during the presentation. As John said, maybe if you have anything, any questions, just write them down off to the side because the chat will be distracting to the presentation and to the recording. And then also when I switch over to share the screen, I'm not going to be able to let anybody in because I'm going to be on that screen and it'd be too distracting to flip back and forth as well. So if anybody on this call has people that are trying to get in, I won't be able to let you in. The presentation probably takes about 20-25 minutes. I won't be able to let anybody in during that time. If they missed it during that time, that's another reason why we're presenting it. I'm sorry, why we're recording it. Okay, so everybody could just stay muted at this time, except for Karen. And I'm going to present the screen and I'm going to start the recording. Okay, Karen, can you see that?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our budget presentation. This is a budget presentation for the 21-22 school year budget, also known as the 22 fiscal year budget. This budget has already been pre-approved by the Board of Education. This budget has already been sent to the county for their approval, and this budget was also posted in last Monday's New Jersey Herald. The budget goals and priorities for this budget are the same as they are in any other budget. They are to continue to maintain and improve instructional programs and curriculum, enhance instructional practices by providing the appropriate resources and professional development and training for staff. The other goal is to present taxpayers with a fiscally sound and responsible budget while identifying educational priorities and implementing the newest state standards. So in essence, the budget goals are to find the delicate balance between providing a robust educational program for our students while providing training and support for our staff, while also keeping in mind the best interest of the taxpayers. The budget priorities in this budget are typical of any other budget. I did happen to add health to this one because of the COVID situation that is still ongoing. So the budget priorities in this budget are health, safety and security, continuity of programs, instructional technologies, and of course, operations and facilities management. The process for this budget is no different than any other year in that the administration engages the staff to ascertain and justify resource needs. So what Karen and I did in this budget and what we've done in last year's budget as well is we create what we call a zero-based budget. So we start at zero and we build from there. We don't just roll things from one year to the next. We start at zero. We see what is necessary when teachers need resources that we deem to be necessary. They need to be justified. We don't hand money to teachers and say, this is the money that you're allowed to spend, but rather we ask the teachers, what do you need? What does it cost? And why do you need it? And we start to build the budget from there. That process also contains teachers with the online bid orders. Once we start to build the budget, we have multiple meetings with the Director of Buildings and Grounds, the IT department, administration, as well as the board, Buildings and Grounds and Technology Committee to determine the facilities and technology needs. We also engage throughout the process the Board of Education Finance Committee. And also, like we do every year, we revisited staff scheduling, class sizes, and programming goals to determine the proper amount of staffing, the ideal amount of staffing. Highlights from this year's budget. In the 21-22 budget, you will see that we have maintained all the current programs that we offer. There is debt service relief in the budget, which Karen will explain later. There is a 0% tax levy, no increase to the taxes, as Karen will explain later. There are shared services within the budget. There is a decrease in staffing, which I'll explain later as to how it helped us balance the budget. And you will also see capital projects in the budget, and those capital projects are the refurbishing of 2 restrooms and HVAC repair. And again, I will speak to that a little later on in the presentation.
Okay, so just to reiterate what Matt said, year over year, the tax levy is $4,268,352. So what does a 0% tax levy mean? In order to get to that 0%, you have to take into account that we lost state aid of about $68,000. So that's revenue for us that's lost. And then we also have expenses that go up each year. So things like your salaries, health insurance, your general liability insurance, transportation, all those costs go up each year. So in order to have a 0% budget, you have to cut expenses in order to get back to zero. So as Matt touched upon as well, we had 2 shared positions that helped us offset that in addition to another position. So overall, a 0% change year over year really means that we did cut taxes, but the amount in 2022 versus 2021, the amount looks like it's the same. So it's a 0% change in the tax levy itself. Okay, so one of our revenues in our budget is our state aid. Each year the state aid has been changing. We had a decrease this year from the 2021 budget to the 2022 budget, 21-22 budget. The area of aid that decreased was our equalization aid. So as you can see in this slide, in the 2021 budget, we had approximately $195,000 in state aid, where this current budget, the 21-22 budget, was about $127,000. So overall, that's where our state aid got cut in that area. So it's about $68,000 loss in state aid year over year. Okay, just to show you where we've come from and where we're headed as far as what's in our schedule. So the losses that we have been experiencing. So in the 2020, it was about almost $35,000. In the 2021 budget, about $47,000. In the 21-22, this current budget, we're losing approximately $68,000. So from the inception to date, we've taken into account about $150,000 of losses are built into our budget. So we have to offset them to keep our budget balanced. What are we expecting in the future? Next year, we're expecting approximately almost $57,000 in losses. Following that year is $35,000, and then expected to round off with an additional 11. So over the next 3 years, we're expected to lose approximately $103,000. So just to give you a better visual picture of kind of where we've come, I put together this schedule. It brings us from 2010 to 2022. So this is your general tax levy. So if you can look all the way to the right, you'll see our current tax levy that is proposed in this budget, the 4.2 million, the 4268352. If you look to the left, you can see we're almost back at the same place that we were in 2013. Okay, so you can see from 2010, it goes up where it kind of peaks in 2017, and we've been bringing that number down each year. So if you compare overall, 2022 is almost comparable to where we were almost 10 years ago. So the levy has been decreasing each year from about 2017 to 2022 has been coming down and staying flat and coming down again overall. So just to put that picture into numbers and percentages, I guess the most important thing, I put the most recent years on the bottom. So you can see this year, 2022, there's a 0% increase. If you go back, last year, we reduced the levy by 1%. Prior to that, it was flat again. And then 2 years prior to that, each of those years, the levy was decreased 3% each of those years. So it peaked in 2017, but then you can see from 2018, for the 5 years, the levy has been decreasing steadily, 3%, 3%, flat, -1%, and 0%. But please keep in mind that 0% means that we are cutting expenses in order to keep it flat. Okay, so to show you from a total picture where the revenues come from, okay, the biggest piece is our local tax levy. That's the $4.268 million that we've been talking about. So that represents about 82% of your revenues. The next largest piece is our state aid, which is $369,994. Our budgeted fund balance, that rolls forward from our surplus. So that's revenue that we've included in this budget. Capital reserve is projects that we are doing for this year, and then debt service. So those are items combined for that capital reserve piece. Miscellaneous represents our preschool tuition-based students that we have. So that revenue is mostly made up of preschool students, for our total operating budget of $5.195 million. If you take out the impact of our capital reserve, withdrawal for our capital projects and our debt service, the total operating budget is about $4.8 million. So you can see that total at the bottom as well. So it's just a good picture of, it shows you the different piece parts that make up our revenue sources as far as the school district. Okay, so just to kind of go through the expenses that mainly increase, our bigger expenses that affect the school each year. Transportation costs, those are our busing of our students. Salary increases of our staff members that are in contracts. So that's what's included in the budget. Our regular general and liability insurance. A big wild card for us this year is our health insurance, because there was the new law with Chapter 44 and the Educators Health Plan. That's one that became effective January 1st of this year, where any new employee had to enroll in that plan, and employees had the option of switching into the Educators Health Plan. The educator's health plan is a plan by law that we have to have any new employee who comes in enroll in that. The difference with this plan is that the employee contribution is much lower than the existing plans that we have. So the impact of just the educator's health plan for our staff members that did switch during open enrollment to this new plan was about $35,000. The wild card is that we'll have an open enrollment again in May, so we don't know how many staff members may switch over. So that could be bigger. If a lot of people say, hey, you know, this is a really good plan, it's a good thing to switch, it is a much lower contribution from the employee side of it. So those are our bigger expenses that you see increase year to year.
Okay, and as Karen pointed out, those are the increases in expenses. And in order to keep a flat tax levy, we have to be able to absorb those expenses and keep the budget at the same number. So how were we able to absorb those expenses? Largely through two personnel moves. The first personnel move would be there's two shared positions that we were able to eliminate in the upcoming budget. Those positions were eliminated due to attrition, and those positions saved approximately $100,000. Karen was better able to align our utilities with the actual expenses from the prior year after Karen has now been here for a year. And the other big decrease in expense, the other way we were able to absorb the increases, was the elimination of the vice principal position. The board rolled the vice principal responsibilities into the CSA responsibilities, thus eliminating the VP position and thus eliminating $85,000 in salary.
Okay, so where does the money go? So we saw the revenue side, and now this is the same picture, but to show you the expense side, our appropriations. So you can kind of see the biggest portion is your instruction. So that's your teacher salaries, it's your basic skills, it's your, so anything like that is going to fall under instruction. The next, there's another big piece, that's your support services. That's your speech, your OT, your attendance, your social work. That's what falls under your support services. Your administration costs, that's your legal, your audit, it's salary, it's a combination of those things. The next section is your plant operations and transportation. That's your busing, it's your costs of running the building. Benefits, that's your health insurance. That's your social security contribution for the school. So it's anything related to benefits. Capital outlay is our capital projects. Charter school is our expense. We have 4 charter school students, and that rounds out your total there. So those are the, you know, in a consolidated format, those are the bigger categories of our expenses as far as where the money goes from our school district.
One component of our budget is something that is referred to as administrative costs. And administrative costs are a line or multiple lines in the budget that are actually capped by the state of New Jersey. The state sets limits on our administrative costs. And the gist of it is that schools have administrative caps based on their enrollment, and the state of New Jersey puts out a number each year to say what each student, the value of each student toward the administrative cap. So it's generally just over $2,000 per student that goes into the administrative cap, and you are not allowed to exceed that cap on the administrative costs. And what goes into those costs, it's not just administrative salaries as it shows on the bottom, which I'll get to. But things that must go into administrative costs include the legal fees, the audit fees, our communications and telephone system, purchase services, membership dues, and the salaries of the superintendent, the business administrator, and the secretary/office staff. The full salary of the superintendent has to go into the administrative costs, and the full salary of the business administrator has to go into the administrative costs, and that includes the benefits as well. So the way we were able to stay under, or the way we are able to maintain our administrative cap is what I referred to before. The board rolled, there's many positions that the superintendent takes on as the chief school administrator. The chief school administrator is the superintendent, is the principal and is the vice principal. There is only one administrator in this building, and then you have the business administrator as well, and that goes into the administrative costs. But that's how the board was able to maintain our administrative costs and able to maintain our 0% tax levy. The upgrades and projects that are part of this budget are coming out of capital reserve. They are not affected by the tax levy. There's two projects that are part of our long-range facilities plan that are part of this budget. The bathroom refurbishment. The bathroom refurbishment refers to the bathrooms, the boys and girls bathroom that is up the ramp closest to pre-K. Those bathrooms are original to the original building, which poses problems. The plumbing is old, the fixtures are old, the urinals in the boys' bathroom go all the way down to the floor. And also the facilities are not ADA compliant. There are 3 stalls in each bathroom, but there is no way to, they're not handicap accessible. So the plan would be to take the 3 stalls and make them into 2 stalls, one of them being larger, and bring us into ADA compliance, and then to upgrade the fixtures and the plumbing in there as well to bring it up to date. And then the other $50,000 as part of the capital projects is dedicated to HVAC repair. There is our HVAC system, specifically our univents are becoming dated, whereas the mechanisms inside of those univents are not operating properly. It mainly affects our air conditioning, which could down the road affect things like the atmosphere, the environment of the room, which could lead to mold and things like that. So we're dedicating $50,000 toward HVAC update and repair. The total number of capital reserve funds dedicated in this budget is $230,000.
Okay, just to go back a little bit. So when we talk about debt service, what is it for? Where did it come from? Back in approximately 2008, the school had a referendum that took place. It was for the addition on the school. The school had taken $5 million in bonds, and they are due in 2033. The school has biannual payments of principal and interest. So just to give you an example, for this budget, our payment is $326,000. Of that, the payment is broken down into the following. We get state aid for a portion of the payment. The board, and I'll go through this on the next slide, we're taking a capital reserve withdrawal of $124,000 to help offset the cost of that payment. And then we also have the piece which is agreed to when the vote went out back in 2008 for the referendum of the debt service levy. So the whole thing is your payment. Normally you would just have the state aid piece, but we have the capital reserve withdrawal to help remedy some of the capital reserve we have there. So the total 3 pieces are the debt levy, the capital reserve, and the state aid to make up your debt service payment.
And just to summarize, because that is kind of a complicated concept, the overall what the debt service is. Back in 2008, there was a proposal to add on to the building here, and that proposal went out to the taxpayers through referendum, and the taxpayers voted yes on that referendum. And by voting yes, the taxpayers agreed that they would make payments on a $5 million bond through 2033. And each year we have to make those payments. So what the board has been doing the past couple of years was actually taking money from our capital reserve and making those payments, or at least part of those payments, on behalf of the taxpayer. And that's what the debt service payment is that Karen is referring to.
So this kind of the same thing as the previous slide. This gets into that debt service payment a little more. So in this budget, we're taking $124,000 of payment to be funded by the capital reserve towards debt service. Just to give you a little bit of history, back on July 25th in 2018, the board had passed a motion for $349,000 to be intended for capital reserve from the capital reserve for debt service payments. So previously, in the 1920 budget, there was $125,000 towards the debt service payment. In 2021, there was 100,000, and then in this current budget, there's a payment of $124,000 towards that debt service payment, as we would call it, debt service relief. Out of the 1920 surplus, the board earmarked $300,000 towards future debt service payments, which is non-binding for the board. Okay, so how does this all equate to dollars to the taxpayer? So with this, an average assessed home in Fredon Township is approximately, we'll say for round numbers, $331,000. So how does this levy affect those homeowners personally? It's approximately a savings of about $29 per year in total. So with our current budget, the average homeowner with an assessment of around $331,000 would save $29 per year on an average assessed home. What are the components of that savings? So from the general fund piece of it, it's about $3.20 per $100,000. And because the board with the debt service funding, you are saving in your taxes about $5.50 per $100,000. So overall, the impact is about $29 savings for your average assessed home in Fredon.
And because this year's budget is going out to vote for the taxpayers to vote on, I thought it was necessary to add a slide to talk about that process and the contingencies that are in place as a result of that process. So this budget will move forward upon approval by the board this evening and will be able to be voted upon by the taxpayers of Fredon Township on April 20th. If the voters choose yes and the budget passes, then the budget is exactly how we explained it. If the budget went down and there was no vote, the budget would then be turned over to the township committee as part of the process. At that point, the township committee would mandate reductions to the budget. Those reductions could be as little as $5,000. Those reductions could be $50,000 or greater. We don't know what those reductions would be. So as a result of that uncertainty, we need to come up with contingency plans in case money does get reduced out of our budget. So what would those things be if our budget got voted down and then thereafter reduced? We would, the gist of it is we would be looking to reduce all the things that are not mandated by the state of New Jersey as far as programming goes. So the cancellation of the 6th grade Washington, D.C. trip, the Fairview Lake field trips, both of those field trips, those traditional field trips here at Fredon, would be possible. And then also the more non-mandated programs, including tuition-based pre-K program, field trips, band, chorus, drama club, volleyball club, SEEK, and other extracurricular offerings. And if the decrease is raised to a point that was more significant than that, and we had to look at bigger figures, we would have to look at reducing our staff. And right now, our staff is right-sized for the building the way it stands right now. So if we were to reduce staff in the building, we would have to combine homerooms. And if you combine homerooms, you would thereby double your class sizes.
So here represents a schedule of, we kind of put together different levels as far as what the different tax cuts would mean. So the first one you see in the table is a 0% increase. Again, in the previous slide, I had mentioned that a 0% increase right now to your average home assessment would mean about a $29 savings overall annually. And then I kind of went through and just put each level. So if the if taxes were cut $100,000 in total, it's about $105 savings to the taxpayer, and that's for the entire year. $200,000 means $181 savings. $300,000 is about $257 savings. $400,000 is about $333 savings. And about $500,000 is a little more than $1 a day that you would that the taxpayer would save by a cut of $500,000 to the school. So that kind of just gives you an idea of how to equate it to an average home assessment.
Yeah, as I said, the budget at this point, we feel our budget is right-sized. So everything that's in the budget is necessary for the budget. So cutting the budget by anything down the left-hand column is the average taxpayer, the average home. If you cut $100,000 out of the budget, that would save the average taxpayer $105 a year, and so on down that column.
So just to recap what we've talked about, just to show you where we're coming from the tax levy from 2021, it was about $4.268 million, a 0% levy change. We're keeping the levy the same, staying at the $4.268 million. Our state aid year over year had a decrease of approximately $68,000, and our operational budgets working from 2021 to 2022 decreased about 22,000, but please keep in mind that it includes your capital projects. So, but overall our budget is decreased, and that kind of just shows you the highlights of the overall presentation at a higher level there.
And at that point, our presentation is concluded. Karen and I would like to thank the Fredon Township Board of Education for their support throughout this process, which becomes more difficult every year, and the Board of Education has been very supportive throughout the process. And then at this point, we will field questions. But what I do first is I will stop recording this presentation. Okay.
All right, it'll be good.
Yeah, now we're done recording. I'm going to stop presenting the screen. One thing I wanted to share, from the screen would just be once these questions are asked, if there's something that cannot be fielded on the fly by myself or Karen, if it's a deeper dive into the numbers, here's Karen's email address. And anybody can reach out to me and get Karen's email address if they need it down the road, or it's on our website. So with that being said, I will stop presenting the screen so we can see people and field the questions.
Okay, thanks very much for that presentation. For folks that just got into the meeting, our apologies if you were in the waiting room to get in. When Matt was presenting, I'm not sure that he was not able to let people in. So just a technical challenge there, but we just got through the budget presentation. I'm going to read a section, and then we'll go to public comment for questions about the budget or other things on the agenda. So when recognized by the president, please state your name and address prior to commenting. All meetings in which the board transacts official business must be public. Meetings of the board are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the business of the school, and therefore not public meetings, but meetings held in public. Once the president closes oral communication, no other questions or comments will be permitted. At this time, only agenda items may be discussed. So if folks have questions about the agenda in general or the budget specifically, you can ask them now. I can go off mute, raise your hand, however we want to do that. Does anybody have any questions?
It appears Vin Riley has a question, and then Rick Smith has a question.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, John. My name is Vin Riley, 10 Fredon Marksboro Road. I have, it's 3 quick questions, but I think 2 or more just clarifying ones. One is just, can you confirm that the administrative costs, when you talked about the budget there, the VP salary would be included in that bucket, correct?
There is no vice principal salary in.
No, I'm saying if there were, it would be included in that administrative bucket, correct?
Yeah, all or part of it could go under admin, depending how it was divided out and depending what that vice principal's role was. If that vice principal's role was more around building management, then yes, more would go into the admin cost. If that vice principal's role were to be more along the lines of curriculum, it wouldn't necessarily fall under the admin cap. Okay,
thanks. And then my second question, and this one came up, I was just trying to understand the HVAC repair when we were looking at our capital assessment. was there anything that could have been done or that we found out that was assessed when we had the issue with the mold? Or is this kind of just routine maintenance that we're catching up on?
Yeah, it was found as we started to do a deep dive into the actual HVAC system after the mold. I wouldn't say it was a cause for the mold, but it was something that was determined at that time. There were certain malfunctioning things, or not malfunctioning, things that were not working 100% within certain univents.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
And then was there a third? I thought you had a third question.
Oh yeah, sorry. Thanks, John. My third one was actually just more just educational for me, and I didn't realize it until I looked at the budget this year. But so, can you explain to me how, like, do we pay for charter students? I didn't understand that one, or how does that work? Just, and if it's an offline question, I can take it offline. It's fine.
No, we do pay for charter students, but I'll let Karen let you know how that works, kind of.
No, yes, we do pay for charter students. We have 4 currently, and they are included in our budget. And we also don't provide transportation to them, but we provide a waiver. So if they choose to drive themselves, they have the option to put in a B6T form for busing, which means then they can opt for a waiver, and we would have to pay that. It's up $1,000 in addition towards their transportation costs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I think Matt Rick was up next.
Rick Smith, yes.
Hey guys, Rick Smith, 6 Hill Terrace, Fredon. Thanks for all the work you do on this. This is probably a real tough job. I'm looking for an answer to see whether we have a line item budget available. Like in previous years when we've been to actual budget presentations, there's been a actual handout like 2020 versus 2021, that kind of stuff, estimated and actual. Is there anything going to be anything like that this year? Where is that a thing Karen could email out maybe?
Yeah, those things do exist. Karen and I can talk with the board about exactly what to share, but there's certainly something we can post. I think maybe Rick, maybe the best option would be to post on the website so that anybody could.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like,
I can't reach everybody through email. I can only reach the parents. But what we can do, and we can discuss this as a board, is I would post the video that we just took, right?
Yeah.
The recording of the budget presentation, and have that as a hyperlink, and then maybe have some kind of depending what kind of level we want to post there, because it's a thick document. But yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, we've seen it in previous years. It's pretty big, but
yeah. So there could be something that we hyperlink along with that in the coming days.
That detail may help a lot of people, especially if they're not watching you guys give the presentation live. That might help them make up their mind, that kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
Thanks again.
And Rick, I would add into that I think one of the other really useful tools for just understanding the budget and the changes year over year are the user-friendly budgets that are already posted. I think they're already linked from our Board of Ed webpage, but we'll just try to make sure that's all in place too. And that's that's like a mid-level in terms of detail, right?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
By all means, the full budget is all the detail that you could ever want, but the user-friendly budget's a little bit easier to get through, and it shows year over year for 3 years running. So
Cool.
I can imagine the budget can be run in different levels, let's say, and the lower the level, the deeper the level, the more detail you're going to get. I don't think we'll be able to post the deepest one of those because that actually has teachers' names on it, and that becomes a personnel matter.
Yeah, I'm not looking for personal information. It's just a little more detail and summaries, right? Just to get year by year comparison.
Sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
all right, other questions? Anybody else? Questions, comments?
Not seeing any, John. And what I would say is, like I said, in the coming days, we'll post that presentation. We'll even post a budget, a line item budget on the website. And if there's questions thereafter, I would encourage you to reach out to Karen. She would be able to better answer the numbers questions. And if it refers to something back into operations or personnel, she would just bring me into the loop. But if you don't have questions tonight, questions will certainly be welcome down the road. Oh, Jeff Love.
Sorry, just is it the appropriate time to discuss with the transition of the salary into next year, transitioning into next year, of what that might look like in scenarios? Or do we need to do that in a different session?
As far as which salary?
ESA, your role per se? Who's going to run?
Yeah, that's something that's something John might touch on when he does his president's report. And he talks about going about the CSA search.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
I mean, basically what I guess maybe you're alluding to, Jeff, right, is that there's only so much money allocated in the budget for administrative positions for next year. And it's, of course, has to be and is below our administrative cap. And then with Matt leaving, we'll have to figure out as a board how we're going to organize that for the school, whether we continue with a single CSA or some other combination of options, right? But regardless of what we do, we're bound by whatever's been budgeted for those positions.
Correct. And if you're going to explain that, I think it's important to know that there could be several options of taking that money and either divvying it up between two people and or a few scenarios, so they understand that that money gets used pretty quickly when you look at those options.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right. Let's give folks a minute. Any other questions or comments from people on the call? All right. Hearing none, I think we're good. No more hands up, Matt?
No, sir.
All right. Then we will close public comment. Again, if something comes up, by all means, email Karen. There's also another public comment section at the end of the meeting if something comes up during the meeting you want to ask about, or email somebody. Get your question into a board member, or preferably Karen if it's a budget question. So, all right, we're closing public comment. Next on the agenda is a resolution to pass the budget that was just presented. So can I have a motion for that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So for the board members, right, and for people on the call, so there's a resolution that outlines just what Karen and Matt presented, 0% increase in the tax levy. And it touches on some of the other components of the budget that were also presented with regard to the capital projects, the debt service payment. A few of those items are highlighted in the agenda. Is there any discussion, questions, or comments from board members on the budget or the resolution? Okay.
Hey,
All right.
John,
Go ahead. Yep, somebody.
sorry, I'm not sure how to put it together, but I want to try to make the case for next year. If there's a chance that the budget gets reduced, we know we're as thin as we can run right now. And if we have this loss again, and maybe some other costs go up like they always do, we're going to be in a bad spot next year. Just everything that was presented was awesome. I just think if Karen or John can explain the difficulty going forward if we get ourselves in that spot. If we take 100 out of this year and next year goes up by 2, what does that look like in people's pockets? It's
Well,
it's like a double hit. You're going to save $100 this year, and you're going to go up 600 next year.
Yeah, I
Is
think
there any
Go
concise
ahead,
way
Karen.
to?
I
make
just
that
wanted
case?
to add, with our budgeted fund balance, we brought revenue forward from our surplus. So that was 106,000. So in turn, when you're looking at next year, you're kind of counting on next year to bring that same 106,000 forward to keep the budget flat to start. You're already in the whole 100,000. So then what happens is then you're also bringing forward the loss of you're expected from the state loss next year. So you're in, I think that was 58,000 if I'm remembering off the top of my head. So you add the 106 plus the 58, that's kind of where you're starting in the hole. And then that has to be offset. You also have in addition to your increases next year. So, I mean, you have to be careful what you cut because it could be detrimental to the school.
Yeah, I agree, Karen. I think that's a really good point, Arnie, as well. We are running very thin. Hopefully enrollment will even go up in the district, right? which could make matters worse in terms of expenses. But that's what we want. We want more kids in the school. We want to go in that direction. But budget-wise, we're running as thin as we can. And the one slide Karen put together with the visuals showing the tax levy over the years from 2010 to 2022, I think that was a great graphic because it really shows that, yeah, the tax levy and the budget did peak in 2017. But we've been working hard, and the administration is working hard to get things right-sized for the past 4 budgets. And now this is the 5th. That's five budgets in a row of significant cuts or holding it flat in light of rising expenses and lost state aid. I'd really be surprised to see another district in the state that had 5 years in a row of flat or cut tax levies. Maybe there are. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that's a pretty good record.
Hey, I got one for you real quick.
Sure.
And again, I don't know if this was just while you were presenting, it came to me. I'm not happy to see some of the items listed as potential cuts. I mean, I think that's like the one. I mean, that's always kind of been my line in the sand. It's the stuff that makes the school great, and I certainly don't want to give it up. But if we had to, are we in a position where, in order to save certain things like that, we could eliminate that debt service payment? Do we have to make that debt service payment?
That's coming out of capital reserve anyway, so that would have nothing to do with the regular budget, which those items are in.
Yeah, so there's no correlation, right?
No, they're 2 separate entities.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
And just for clarification, how many shared services do we have now currently that we're sharing teachers?
I'd have to run through it, Jeff, but I would say easily a half dozen.
Easily a half dozen.
Yeah, and not just teachers, but we share. There's a couple of teachers. Well, I'll go through it. I'll go through it off the top of my head. Then the art teacher, our school psychologist,
Technology.
the technology coordinator, the director of special services, and then in the current year's budget that we're living in right now, you had the library media specialist as a shared service, and you had the Spanish teacher as a shared service as well. Am I missing any other ones, Karen?
No, I think you got them.
So that was about. I'm sorry. So it's 6, 5 or 6.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I think I might have seen another hand come up, but public comment had been closed. No? Okay.
No, Jess is still up.
Okay.
His arm's getting tired.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments from the board members?
Matt, I caught an email somewhere just recently about something Murphy signed about maintaining a surplus. Is there anything to talk about with that? Does that affect us?
It actually just increases what you can keep in your maintain as a surplus. Karen, could you offer more on that?
Sure. It was going from 2 to 4%, but you can also up to $250,000. Being that we're a smaller school, we selected 250. If you were a bigger school and you had a bigger pool of money, 4% of a bigger number might be greater than 250,000. So if you're a bigger school, it would help, but for us, it doesn't really help.
Okay, nothing to talk about there.
I mean, it's a big change, but it doesn't really affect us at this
Okay,
point.
thanks. I didn't get to look that up.
And Karen, just help me out with that. Isn't that actually a different surplus than the surplus we talk about in terms of like the money that gets rolled into cap reserve?
That's
right?
what you're allowed to keep. Like
Yeah.
after, when they do the audit, they say, okay, you have $250,000. That's kind of, you don't want to tap into that at all though.
Right. I understand. Yeah. Okay. All right. And just something else I would share myself on this. So, I've been involved I've been on the board for quite a while, been involved in budgets heavily for most of that time. And I've been through the budget a lot this year. I really do believe it's very sound. And I really do believe that our school district is in a really solid place. There's been some communications amongst the other districts in our region, and the other districts, including the high school, have lost a lot of money in state aid. And our percentage was sizable, but our dollar amount is, of course, a lot less because we get less state overall. So I really hope that the public appreciates the work that's been done to right-size the budget over the past 4 and now 5th budget, and that this budget stands because the school's in a phenomenal place financially, administratively, teachers and staff. We're in a really good place. And I just hope that stands and that we can focus on the kids and educating them well. And something, Matt, that we've touched on the past few meetings, right? As it's still on my mind to figure out if we're going to go for another blue ribbon recertification or something else. But I really want us to get focused on and heavily focused on the kids, the teachers, the staff, the students, educating the students. So I'll leave it with that. Any other comments, or should we go to a vote?
Yeah, John, I think there's maybe one more thing along the exact same lines, is that the building itself is in good shape and the capital budget's in good shape. And even though that budget got big and it was big concern, in a way it was a good thing because we don't have to budget for it recently and forward. So as we Lou stated, we're not budgeting for projects. The money's there. So in a way it was a good thing that happened for us. So I agree with everything you said, but also the building and the budget to support the building is in really good shape.
I agree.
So that worked out.
Yep, I would agree. So anybody looking to move into Fredon, right, that goes to visit the school will probably be pretty impressed, right? Okay.
What would help everybody is just more students. We need more families in the town. If we get student count up, that would help. I mean, the building's ready for it and it's got capacity. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have a motion, I guess, Karen, if we have a roll call on the resolution.
Okay, Mr. Kepler,
Can I follow up just one item real quick? I apologize. Matt, did you talk about any of the curricular updates or anything innovative or new that we were doing with curriculum in the presentation at all?
Not in the presentation, no, but there are curriculum updates that are going to be scheduled that are state mandated. In fact, I'm meeting with the region tomorrow. Oh, there's another shared service, Jeff. Our curriculum coordinator is a shared service. So the regional superintendents tomorrow morning are going to debrief with the regional curriculum coordinator, and she's going to give us an update on the revision of the curriculum.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I apologize. I just thought it would be prudent to point out some of the things we were looking to do there as well. So that's all.
Okay. All right, Karen, roll call.
all right, Mr. Kepler,
Yes.
Mr. Lobb,
yes.
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mrs. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Nemus.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, board president's report. I'll just try to be brief on this. So last Monday, a week ago, we actually did a presentation. Actually, Matt and Karen did a presentation to the Mayor Flora, and the liaison from the Township Committee to the Board of Ed, Glenn Dietz. Jeff and myself were there from the Finance Committee. And the idea was to give them a preview of the presentation you all just saw on this call. So that happened last Monday. So just folks know we're trying to, improve communications and keep things going. So the upcoming budget vote and public question. So as a board and with the administration's help, we need to figure out the wording of the public question on the ballot. So we're going to tackle that under new business tonight. But we have to finalize that quickly so they can get it to the county so they can get the ballots printed and sent out. And then the thing I want to spend a little bit of time on now is the CSA search topic. So Matt, I think we've gotten on the order of 15 or so applicants for the position. So as a board, I'd like us to figure out how we want to go through this process. And just throwing something out there, right? So Matt's already looked through the resumes, kind of grouped them and down selected. My thinking is to have him make all the resumes available to the full board so we can all look through those and try to match what you think is good versus what he's, how he's kind of grouped them. And then I think we just start going through those interviews with those people and bring them in, go through the interviews. So the question for the board is, do we want to have the personnel committee do the initial interview with Matt and or Karen? Do board members want to be involved? I want to be careful here that as board president that I don't usurp too much authority or power by also being the primary one doing interviews of candidates. So want to get your input on what you guys think, how we should go through that process as a board.
What did we do when you went through, Matt? What was the first round?
If I recall, the first round was done by a committee, which consisted, and I believe Kathy can tell you, actually, I think she sounded,
Yes.
I think it was personnel at the time,
Mhm.
and a couple of parents.
2 parents.
And was there a staff member too, Kathy? Yeah.
Yeah, and staff member.
Yeah, that
And-
was, go ahead.
Yeah, no,
And-
I think, oh, go ahead, Kathy.
And I was going to say, I like the idea of everybody being involved, but I also realize that as far as all of us being in or able to do interviews together, we're now setting up another meeting. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And then also, I'm wondering if that kind of committee, that setup could happen again, because I think that worked really well. I mean, we found Matt. So I like that idea. Again, it depends on people's schedule as well.
Yeah, that was round one. So how many candidates did you have? Do you remember?
So we saw, I think what we did was we let Gail look at the entire list, and there were certain people that weren't qualified, just by looking at the resume. So she presented, I want to say it was like 6 at the most, and it could have even been 5. I remember, 2 or 3 of them in particular, but she actually presented those to that committee, and then we chose, I think it was the top 2. We were actually going to choose the top 3, but something went on with the third person. So I think we chose the top 2 to be brought forward to the board to, interview as well, which we did on one of the meetings.
Yeah. Yeah. So personnel committee had that subcommittee or they put together just the hiring committee,
Yes.
fielded, X number of applications and at least the screened ones. And then with, the expectation was to bring like 2 or 3 names forward. I thought it was 3. I remember, I think seeing 3 at some point, but I do remember only interviewing 2. So.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Seemed like a decent format, as we employed it last time.
And we could always use this format as well for those, I was not bringing everybody into the building. We could also use a virtual format, at least for that round, or for the whole process too. Again, that's the board's decision.
Just realize the time is of the essence, right? Because when
Right.
Gail was here, we had a little more runway to work through that process. That's going to have to be quick. We've got 2 months to have somebody seated, pretty much. But
Right.
go
Well,
ahead.
John, Matt's idea of being able to do the virtual, at least that first round, I think does kind of help a little bit. Just getting people in the room and having parents and staff and the committee all get a chance to ask questions and be part of that, I think is huge.
Okay.
Isn't this a
So-
lot more applicants than we expected?
I think we had some applicants last time that we didn't actually get to see because they weren't qualified. I haven't seen any recently, from Matt yet, but Matt, you'd say there's probably people in there that weren't qualified or wouldn't be at the level that we'd be looking for in the application pool already.
Yeah, of the 15, I organized them into tiers. And, the top tier probably had about 5 very viable candidates in my mind. And then the next tier was like current vice principals and whatnot, that might, they might work out. And then there was a bottom tier that was like, no, they're not even
Right.
current administrators or their resume just doesn't make sense to me, that sort of thing. Maybe like the bottom, maybe like 3 or 4 like that at the bottom.
Okay.
Are we solely looking for a CSA straight out of the box, or are we looking at alternate options too?
So
I want to look for other options.
what I presented did I type that up, John, to just the personnel committee? I could share it with the board if that's the case. I came up with
Go ahead.
options
That's
as to what the direction the board could go in. And those options included doing exactly what you're doing now and having one person be the superintendent, the principal, and the vice principal, with a little help from a coordinator position. Another option was to find a shared service or go long-term interim that you're gonna have a superintendent that's in the district only a couple of days a week, which might be all that's necessary, and then finding a strong principal or vice principal to run the building on day-to-day operations. Well, two of the options were having an interim do that or a shared service do that. The part-time superintendent with a strong principal or vice principal run the building. And then the final option was to bring in a CSA and take perhaps a current teaching position and make it a teacher/VP. Those are the four options I laid out to the board.
And given where we are timeframe wise, I mean, personally, I like the option of trying to bring in an interim, especially because we're heading into summer, right? So try to get an interim, perhaps an interim in staff, on roll, covers through the end of the year. But meanwhile, really try to finalize the best way forward for this.
And that was my recommendation to the personnel committee as well.
Yeah.
Get a strong interim in here to buy you a little bit of time and get everything solidified for the process, not be rushed through the process, as Kathy had mentioned during our personnel meeting, and rightfully so.
Right.
And then maybe by the time school starts again, you got what you want in place.
Right.
Yeah, because they may have to give notice too, based on their current agreement. If they're leaving a role too, they may have to give that 60 or 90-day window. So
yeah, seemingly an interim would not, because they're not, they're retired superintendents seemingly. They could start tomorrow. But which is why I said that might be the viable option to slow down the process and make sure you guys do what you want to do.
Yeah, and certainly as we go through this, if we see somebody that is a great fit for the position full time, we can move on that as well. So, so Jeff, Ben, Arnie, your thoughts on this structure? If we just let the personnel committee, a couple of parents, staff member be part of the interview team, then you guys are not. And I want to get your thoughts on that, because I remember when I went through this last time, I was not on the committee, and it felt a little weird that some parents got to interview potential candidates, but I didn't, right? Because this is the primary responsibility of the board, is to hire for this position, right? That's one of the number one things that we're charged to do. So I would offer to give up my position on the committee for the interviewing if one of you guys wanted to take that. However you guys want to play it, or if you want to come up with a different structure. So any thoughts on that?
Well, the committee is the first step, right? We ultimately all vote on it, correct?
Yeah, we would all interview the down selected candidates.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just all for a principal and finding a way to share a CSA.
Okay.
I think that would suit the school better, especially if we have somebody that is there that could move up.
Yeah. Okay.
Seems like they would have the most interest and maybe be the best for us.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that process. I think that's largely the norm. And I mean, outside of Fredon and other places and things like that. And I think that's what you want. You want to have representative from the teachers and parents group and community members, part of a committee. They're not deciding individually, they're deciding as a group in committee format. And I think that's appropriate. I mean, they're providing a list of the top candidates, so it's not a free for all. There's going to be, it's going to be run by the personnel committee. They're just forwarding a list of names. And if we get 3 names and it doesn't work out for us, I know time is tight, but we could reapply. We could ask for new applicants. I mean, it's not like we're absolutely locked in with the names that you get. If they're, they turn out or something turns out not to go well. So.
Okay. So then just the question I would have for Jeff, Ben, or Arnie, if one of you guys want to be on the interview committee in place of me, I'm okay with that. Just let me know.
I like that idea. That's cool. I would defer if one of you folks wants it, but I'd be happy to do it.
I don't need to be involved with interviewing. I just want to know that we're looking at principals and sharing a CSA. That's my 100% what I want.
Did we put out an ad based on that, Arnie? Do you know, or actually it would be Matt. You put the ad out.
Interim, yes. Shared, no. And I looked
Okay.
up immediately in the region for a shared, and neither of those gentlemen were interested, and rightfully so. They're already sharing. They already have 2 districts, and what I learned since then actually is that you can't do 3 districts. It's some kind of anomaly in the rule that the business administrators can share like 5 districts, but CSAs cannot share more than 2. So you couldn't share within the region, and then then you would have to ask yourself, how comfortable are you going outside of the region, and how far outside the region? But they're not post for shared, but that's something that can be pursued from board president to board president.
Yeah, just thinking going down 94 the other way, we have a couple of schools we should look at, right?
Yeah, say how far can we go on our share? We could go pretty,
Up to you guys, but you would want somebody within a decent range in case there's an emergency in the building and they have to get up here.
Yep.
I love Sanderson, but we're closer to a couple than them.
Yeah. We're down to 206 and 80.
All right. So, and Jeff, what about you? So, Kathy, first of all, are you good with being, as chair of the personnel committee, heading up the interviews?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Okay.
fine.
And then, in terms of myself, so Jeff, Ben, what's your preference? Would one of you guys want to take the spot in place of me? Or how do you want to do that?
Ben, if you want it, you can have it. I'd like to see it at some level when it's narrowing down, whether it be Zoom or obviously we're going to see all the candidates via resumes as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think if you get through some candidates and you narrow things down, see part of it, yes. Just have some insight.
Yeah, that
Can
works.
I ask, Ben, how does it work though with you working in a school? How does that, it doesn't make any difference? Okay.
No, not at all. I have to. I mean, I stay
Unless
away
work-
from. What's that?
Unless they work in your school, right?
Well, I wouldn't even think that would play into it. I can't perceive a conflict in that sense, and I you guys know I'm pretty rigid when it comes to perceived conflicts. I can't imagine that would be a situation.
Okay.
It would have to be pretty specific for a conflict to arise, at which point Ben would
If
know.
you wanted to hire my mother to come back, that would be a conflict.
Yes, it would.
All right. So that's our plan. Kathy and Ben. Ben, you could fall on myself or Jeff, even Arnie as an alternate if something comes up, I guess. Kathy, hopefully you'll make them all. Best if you both make all the interviews for consistency, I guess. So, okay.
Absolutely.
We're settled on that. All right. Matt, your report, please.
Okay. I'll move the CSA, the Chief School Administrator Search update to the top. Obviously, there wasn't much to add to that, but I did just want to make a comment about why there's a need for a CSA search, right? So, I already had individual conversations with the board. I already had individual conversations with a lot of staff members. And I just want to reiterate to the board and to the community. Well, first I wanted to do was thank the board and the community for those of you that have supported my decision. As I spoke to the board and to some of our staff members, the decision that was made while considering many personal and professional factors on my end. And the Board of Education and the staff here has been supportive of me since I walked through the doors, since I arrived at Fredon. And their support has been the same. The board and the staff members has been the same even since the news of my resignation. The staff and the board has been more than supportive, and I truly appreciate that. And lastly, our community, our school community, has been through a lot since I've been here. We've overcome unthinkable challenges and in my time here, and I just want everybody, the staff, the community, and the board to know that even after my departure, I'm going to continue to support this school district, obviously, moving forward in any way that I can. So I just want to make that statement to the board. I should have said that before we started talking about replacing me, but that's just how it shook out on the agenda. But I want to make sure I got that statement out there to you guys and to the community. Other things in the CSA report, some more fun things. How about that?
Hold up one second, Matt. I do want to thank you for your time here. I think, I would obviously be, we would love to keep you, but it's a good opportunity for you, and we understand that. And we just wish you the best, and we do appreciate the time that we had having you here, and we think you definitely moved the school in a good direction. So thank you.
I appreciate that, and all the board members had the same sentiment in our private conversations too, and I do appreciate that. I really do. Some more fun things. So a couple of weeks ago, we announced our Superintendent Roundtable Award recipients. So every year, each school district in the county names a Superintendent Roundtable Award. It goes to a student in the highest grade level in that school district. So a Fredon would be a sixth grader, a Kittatinny would be a senior. And we'll do a more formal recognition of this young lady in a future board meeting, but I wanted to put it out there because it was already announced in School-wide News, and we did a nice Google Meet. We couldn't have an assembly like we always do here for the announcement, so we did a Google Meet, and I announced the winner. And I just want to announce it to the board again and to the community members that are on here that Sadie Brand has earned our Superintendent Roundtable Award for this school year. And then some more credit for another student, Sophia Cabezas has her artwork was selected to represent the Sussex and Morris County in a virtual statewide exhibit, and that's a heck of an honor. And again, we'll honor that young lady as well in looking like the May board meeting, where we'll do some more honoring of these students. PSA update we talked about. The virtual learning and in-person learning update. I don't want to say too much about it without knocking on wood, so I won't say too much about it. But what I will say about it is our staff has been unbelievable, and our parents have really been unbelievable in that I laid out a bunch of rules, and they're confusing as heck. Well, I didn't lay them out. I shared the rules that are the Department of Health rules, and they're confusing, and there's a lot. And I keep sending them to people, and I keep beating them over the head with it. And our parents have been responsive. They've been great about it because there's the only way that we keep our school open for all of our students is by not having staff cases and by not having student cases enter our building and having to do contact tracing. And our staff and our parent community has been unbelievable. So we just want to keep that momentum going. Kindergarten and pre-K registration updates. The pre-K registration update. The last board meeting I told you pre-K was full with a waiting list. So there's nothing new there. It's full with a waiting list. Kindergarten, we're looking at, I believe we are at right now, what our current kindergarten class is this school year is the number of students, which is 20, is what we're looking at for next year. We're, of course, hoping to get more. And as Wendy, who is the resident expert on kindergarten registration, says, we always get a couple more rolling in throughout the spring and summer. So, again, hoping to get those numbers up. Sixth grade graduation. This has been a topic in our superintendent roundtable meetings, not just sixth grade graduation, but seniors graduating and proms and things like that. We don't have guidance yet. The governor promised that guidance would be coming out soon, and he promised that this year the guidance would not change. Last year was a moving target and was very frustrating. This year they said when they come out with graduation guidance, they're going to keep it as such. So I formed a sixth grade graduation committee, consists of staff members and a couple of parents. I won't commence that committee until we get guidance. There's nothing to talk about right now until we know what the rules are. But the plan is to have some sort of sixth grade graduation here. And it looks like if everything stayed the way it is right now, that we could figure out something for these students who have missed so much. I'm also looking at trying to get these kids, the sixth grade students, a Fairview trip as well. Not overnight, can't do all that, but some way that we can safely get these sixth graders a Fairview experience as well, because that is a long-standing Fredon tradition. So we're trying to figure out a way to do like 2 consecutive day trips over there, no overnight stay. We'll have to figure out transportation, we'll have to figure out the activities. In fact, I'm going to talk to, I think I have a meeting with Fairview either this week or next week to try and nail down some details to give these kids something, the sixth graders. And the same rule goes for pre-K graduation. We'll figure something out. And Miss Kelly will get creative, as she always does if need be, to make sure that these youngsters are recognized as well. The enrollment chart is as listed. We went up 1 in the month of March in our enrollment. The drill chart is as listed. Both are to be determined. I sent out an email to staff today scheduling our drills for this month, so they'll be contained in next month's report. And then the dates to remember coming up, thank goodness, we all need a break. It's spring break. April 1st is a 1 p.m. dismissal. That's a Thursday. That's followed by Good Friday, which is April 2nd. April 2nd starts our spring break. And, we'll go through all the next week on spring break. Hopefully everybody takes a safe spring break. And I emailed the staff and the community separately to let them know, again, what the rules are regarding spring break and about quarantining and the health guidelines regarding that. And that's my report.
Thanks. Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Question. Has there been any guidance on the change of distancing in the classroom?
No, again, very frustrating. So we're good. Like Fredon's good, thankfully. Like we figured it out. But we're an anomaly. We're in a unique situation with the size of our school and our enrollment. We were lucky enough to figure it out and get all the kids in. Not every district in this county, in fact, only 2 or 3 other districts are able to do that. So everybody is very frustrated with the fact that the CDC comes out with guidelines that says 3 feet is acceptable. 6 feet, of course, is optimal, but 3 feet is acceptable. The problem throughout this pandemic has been when CDC comes out with guidelines, the NJDOH is not soon to follow. The NJDOH, for whatever the process is, I don't know. I'm not knocking the administrative, whatever it is, the bureaucracy, but it takes a long time from the CDC to come out with guidelines until New Jersey Department of Health comes out with guidelines. And the New Jersey Department of Health is what we need to follow. So there has not been an update from the New Jersey Department of Health, but I and superintendents around the county, around the state, are waiting with bated breath for that update.
Thank you.
All right, board secretary report.
Okay, so just a friendly reminder, all board members have to complete their ethics and financial disclosures. If you are a brand new member, it is due by the 24th, so 2 days. Check your emails, it has a specific code for you. If you have any questions, give me a shout, I will help. Everyone else is due by 4:30, but you've been sent everything in your email. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll resend it to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Karen. Okay. All right. Next, item 1, approval of the following routine matters. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so this is for approving the board minutes from the February 22nd meeting. Any discussion, comments, questions on those minutes? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Lobb,
Yes.
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mrs. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Kepler,
Yes.
Mr. Nemes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, personnel. Can I have a motion for the personnel items on the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Mrs. Higgins, is there a personnel report for today? I don't remember.
Well,
There.
actually, you've covered it all twice already, John and Matt. So you're still in my thunder. But basically, it's based around the CSA and the search for the personnel, basically. So that's where we are right now.
Okay. All right, and Matt, this section also has your resignation on it as well. And I echo the sentiments mentioned before by Ben, for sure. Really appreciate your professionalism, what you've done for the school, all of it. Really, you're going to be missed. You made a really great impact on the school that's going to be long lasting. So thank you for all you've done for the school and will continue to do for your involvement as a parent.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And as a resident of this town and I will not be leaving the county, I will support any chief school administrator that comes in here. They can have my cell phone number. I'll support them and I'll support the board in any way that I can to keep this school district moving in the direction that we started moving.
Appreciate that. Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions on that section? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mrs. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Kepler,
Yes.
Mr. Lobb,
Yes.
Mr. Nemes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, curriculum and policy. Can I have a motion to move those items, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Ben, is there a report for this section?
Well, we have a couple items. We have a number of policy alerts and updates, and you actually have on the agenda first reading, I believe.
Yep.
Of a number of policies and regulations. For the most part, we went with the previously selected options in those policies. However, there were two items that we wanted to discuss. They deal with public comment. So bylaw 0164, require people to identify themselves prior to speaking was an option. So do we need to require people to identify themselves prior to speaking? I would argue it's already protocol. We do it anyway. I think you just kind of stick with the norm. But again, it's out there for you to weigh in on if you view that any other way.
Is that how the existing policy was written, to require identification?
I'd have to go back.
They ID themselves.
Matt, do you remember off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall specifically, but I would 90% assume so. That's protocol in any board meeting anywhere. So that would be the normal one. That what Ben's referring to is just remote board meetings to do the same. Which
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I apologize for that. Yeah, so it's an update. This would be like new policy, and there's no option that we have selected currently.
Okay.
So, I mean, personally, I think you kind of just stick with the norm. But now that it's based in an online meeting, nothing should really change. I don't think.
I would agree, and I mean, though, personally, I wouldn't hold somebody to it if they didn't want to identify themselves. I'm okay with that, but I would agree to write the policy consistent with the in-person meeting. So, okay.
And then there was one other one. Again, same bylaw 0164. Do we accept chat comments as public comment? So that actually was brought up, I think maybe the last meeting at the end, whether we should accept the chat comments or what do we do? And
yeah.
I made the argument at that time, to accept the chat comments, because that was kind of the way we had been running it for the previous year. So we were doing these online meetings, and any of the chat comments towards the end of the meeting, I was reading out loud. But again, now we could put something solid in place and make a decision about that if, we view it a different way at this point. So
I guess I would probably prefer that if somebody put something in chat that they wanted to be entered as a public comment, they identified it that way. Either said, we'd like this read during public comment, or this is a public comment. Because like we've seen with previous meetings, just comments that appear during the chat, sometimes they don't have context. It could just be people clarifying things for other people. So I think maybe part of the protocol could be, when we start a meeting, to let people know that they post something in the chat and they want it to be considered a public comment, to identify it that way.
Okay, I'll make notes on that point of discussion, and we'll see what we can do regarding the policy. Is there consistency there? Is that kind of are the rest of you folks good with that? Kathy, Arnie, Jeff?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So
we can add that. We can discuss it in the next committee meeting, Ben, and then we can add it as a second reading, as the revision for the second reading next week.
Right. Yep, you got it. And then again, we have time limits for current public comment, but again, now we're talking about bylaw 0164, so online meetings. Do we want to impose reasonable time limits on public comment? And there are actually three options. The current thing that we do in real life is 3 minutes. We could change it to 4 or 5 minutes. And at a committee level, we talked about it. We said, just go with the 5 minutes. So I'd be curious to see where you guys were at on that.
You don't want to go with the hour or two per person like we did a couple meetings ago? So my feeling on that actually is, I feel like if people come to the meeting, that I would stay as long as I could to hear them out and try to answer their questions. but I know that that's a hardship sometimes, and we've had that the past few meetings, right? We had 3-hour meeting, and it was a lot. But I agree with putting a time limit in the policy. Is there wording around that? It could be extended by the president or the board as they see fit, or how tight is that really meant to be adhered to?
I'd have
You
to
know,
go
we,
back and look real
you know what
quick.
we could do, John, is we could pull language from our current bylaw. Again, this is a board decision, but I'll throw
Yeah,
my two.
sure.
We could pull language from the current bylaw, which states if the president feels that public comment section is going to go over is going to exceed a half hour, he or she can limit the public comment to 3 minutes, with the idea that also, let's just say Vin Riley's on this call, right? So if Vin speaks and it gets his 3 minutes in, he can actually speak again, but he has to wait till everybody else has an opportunity. Vin can actually go again. So all that language is written in the current bylaw for real life board meetings, in person, I should say. This is a real life board meeting, in person board meeting. We can kind of pull that language over if you so choose.
I feel like, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Ben,
Jeff.
did we talk about extending that from 3 minutes to 5? 5, yeah.
5. Yep.
3
Yeah,
minutes.
we were saying 5, and we went back and again, like we looked at the normal protocol for public comment and stuff like that, and I think a lot of us just kind of see it different ways. I always kind of thought public comment was, somebody's opportunity to come and make a statement. I never necessarily viewed public comment as like a back and forth interaction. And I know people get upset about that, and I apologize, but at the same time, I mean, that is kind of like the procedure. And just because people come and they have something to say doesn't mean it's not considered. I mean, there's been a number of times where someone's come and brought really great points and made a great case. And, it's like definitely impacted decisions that I've made personally or how I voted and things like that down the line. So again, like there is power in public comment. It's not, in my mind, like necessarily like the place to sit around and just have a round table. And again, I think like sometimes we do go in that direction and it happens, but just by reading the policy, that's really not what public comment really is supposed to be for. So I don't know. I'd like to stick with trying to run that the way policy dictates it as much as possible. So I like the idea of mimicking policy that we have in real life. And obviously there are times where, again, board president discretion or however it goes, or a motion to extend or something like that can, you can kind of change the rules a little bit, but I do like at least rooting it in that policy.
I also feel like if people have taken the time, to come to the meeting and speak, that really they should have the time that they need to, get their point across. I do also believe that, the number of people in the meeting really can, make a big difference. So I think my personal opinion is it should be left up to, I guess, the board president or however we look at it, but to look at, okay, is this a hot topic? Is this something that everybody is going to want to have a little bit of a say on? Then maybe we limit it at that point. But under normal circumstances, if we have 5 people and 2 of them speak, if they want to take 10 minutes, it doesn't, that's not unreasonable, I don't think. I think it's just a matter of, making sure everybody gets to say something if they want to.
So I would add 2 more things on this, right? I agree, Ben, that, school board's direction on this is let people speak, accept their comment, make note of it, and move on. And they really strongly advise against back and forth. But I know for myself, I don't want to operate that way. I really like the exchange. I'm happy to answer people's questions. I know that it can make the meetings longer, but I would like to at least have some wording in the policy that allows for that. And I know in the past, I was part of the board when comments were timed and bells were going off and people were speaking. And I thought it was really insulting to the people that came to the meeting and wanted to have an exchange and be heard. So, I think it's rare that we have a lot of people at our meeting. Tonight we had another 30 people or so attend, which is great. But only a few spoke. So I think it's pretty rare we get a lot of people to the meeting. It's rare that people speak. And when they do, it's typically a hot topic. And I think we should do our best to hear them out. So I would advocate for a lot of flexibility in the public comment section.
Okay, well, we'll definitely proceed with that input. And I'm assuming Arnie is right in line with your last sentiment there, right?
100%.
All right.
So just for the record, Ben, if you want to make a note, it sounds like we're not just addressing the remote board meeting, but also the regular bylaw as well to allow for that flexibility from what I'm hearing.
Noted.
And if it takes a cycle or two, if you guys want to go back on it, send something out, email, whatever, if it takes us a meeting or two to get through it to reach a consensus, that's okay too, right? So, all right.
Go
ahead.
Yeah, so let's see. There's also a total time. There can be total times for public comment. Total time 30 minutes. And then, again, I don't know if we have to rehash that whole thing because I think we just talked about it, and I think I understand where everybody lies on that. But the final point there for public comment period, and this was something that I had brought up last meeting, was do we want to look into a policy for live streaming or recording public meetings and then posting it on our website? We want to have, potentially a new policy where we allow for something like that.
So there is a policy that already covers recording of meetings, but it only allows the public, or as you said, Matt, right? It's silent on the board members, but it allows public to do it. Yeah, if you guys could recommend something on that, absolutely. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, because honestly, I think, even just this evening, Matt gave the heads up. We're going to record the meeting. Or not the entire meeting, but we're going to record the presentation just so people can come back and watch it tomorrow morning or the next day or a week from now. And I think that's a great way to, put this stuff out. I think there's a lot of people who would watch the meeting later on or fast forward through different parts and try to hear what people have to actually say. So I think that's something that we really need to look into. So again, like maybe first thing would be to find a policy and find something we're comfortable with and kind of implement in that capacity at least first.
And on that, I would probably would want some flexibility there. For example, tonight, I think it was an important meeting to recording. It was a nice thing to do, and we can post and get it out there. I'm not sure we want to record every meeting though, because then it also becomes a public records issue. So maybe if the policy is even written where we can record at our discretion. So if it's a hot topic like the budget, we can record it. But I'll leave it with you guys to propose something.
Okay. All right. I think that should pretty much cover everything as of right now. Matt, there was one other on there, but I don't think anything really came of it. It was the policy 5111 might need an exemption.
Oh yeah, no, that is
not an issue.
That is moved to this point. Yes.
All right. Yeah, that'll be it for me. So.
Okay. Any other comments from anybody? Questions? Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Kapler,
Yes.
Mr. Lobb,
Yes.
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mr. Nemus.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Section on finance. So can I have a motion to move the finance topics, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So in terms of a report, the budget was, I guess, the big topic. So we all just went through that. Thanks everybody for your efforts in preparing it, reviewing it, and of course approving it. I don't know that there's anything else pertinent from the finance side. Matt, does anything else or Karen come to mind finance-wise?
I would just want to highlight the great grant opportunities that have presented themselves here with the REAP grant, which we do every year, which is
Okay.
providing for rural areas for technology. And also that ESSER 2 grant that came out is going to be a huge expenditure for us. And we're going to have a meeting this week actually on how to spend the ESSER 2 grant, or actually how to apply for it and what we're going to spend our money on. But money, that's a federal grant. And the federal government, actually the state of New Jersey has told us, or the federal government has told us that there's certain money out of that 145,000 that must be used toward learning acceleration, which I like that term better than learning loss. You have to use a certain amount of that toward learning acceleration, and you have to use a certain amount of that toward social emotional learning, which are both great topics. So we're going to meet as a committee later this week with the staff and figure out exactly what that looks like for us. But I just wanted to highlight those 2 grants because that's good money for the district for good programs. That's not in the budget.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, would
Yeah.
that involve in any capacity, maybe like summer remediation type programs?
That's where my head is going, but I want to run it through the committee to see our restart committee that we formed when the pandemic started. I would love to see some sort of summer programming. I want to see what the staff thinks about that. Will we do something in person? Will we do something online like this, but at least the kids are still engaged? You know, what exactly does it look like? That's what we have the committee for. But yes, summer programs.
Very good.
Yeah, Matt, I'm glad you brought that up. That was actually a good reminder because I meant to just talk about that a little bit too. I agree. I mean, that's one of the primary things I wanted to, just keep us focused on, right, is the students and the learning. And there is a concern that they're behind from just the way things have happened with COVID and time out of the classroom earlier on. So fully support whatever you guys can do to assess for any deficits in terms of learning and being at level, or at least, where the kids should be on a grade by grade basis, and whatever you can do to help accelerate them back on track and even ahead would be great. So fully support that. That's great. So thanks for getting that grant going. Okay. Other thoughts, questions, comments? Anybody?
I had a question on H, line item H. So we have the 1 gigabyte internet access circuit coming from, I think, Pentel Data. But we also have a new provider in the area, Planet. And I guess what I'm saying is, I know that it goes through E-rate, and E-rate can be a bit pushy in order to, get what you need to get from them, the information and stuff. But a 3-year contract with Pentel Data, I was thinking, is there an option for a 1 year? Or I'm just thinking with Planet, the new provider in place, maybe we would, try and get a better deal or play one. Sussex County very seldom gets the opportunity to play one vendor off against another from where we are. So if we have that opportunity, I'm just wondering if it might be something we could look into.
Yeah, look at our bus situation.
Do you want to
with one provider?
field that, Karen, or do you want me to field it?
So Planet was on the bid. I guess, and Matt, you might be able to explain this better, but with the fiber line, I guess that is not ours, that we lease. I think that's what it is.
We do.
Yeah, I explained it. I thought so, but it's hard to see if you really explain it in my Friday update. It's a lot to type and explain, but we went out through E-rate for an internet provider, and they came back with 3 quotes. And Planet Network was lower than Pentel Data on the initial quote. The problem is Pentel Data owns that fiber line that runs between this main building here and the business office up top. We have that fiber line.
Right.
And Pentel Data owns that line. So when they gave us a quote that was a little higher than Planet Network, if we went with Planet Network, Pentel Data would come through and cut that line, take it with them, and then we would have to purchase a line and services from Planet Network. And when you add that into the quote, which was not in the side-by-side quotes, it ends up costing more to go to Planet Network.
Okay. All right. So, and just from my recollection of that particular line, that has been a nightmare from day one. and something that, at some point we're going to need to address. But if that means we're stuck, that's what it means. So I just wanted, as I said, we don't get this opportunity often. So when we do, we should make the most of it. So thank you for, I did actually send the email to Karen, but I don't know if you've gotten back to me or not. I didn't have a chance today to review anything.
The diligence was certainly done by Karen and Carlos. And
Okay.
And they, they showed me the quotes and they presented with what I hope I just explained properly is
Okay. No, that's fine.
how
I
we are.
totally get that. Okay.
Can I ask a question on that fiber line?
Mhm.
Do we know if it's they own the line, but is it a conduit? Is it our conduit they run it through?
It's
Like,
actually run over the top, Jeff, believe it or not. It's not run through conduit. It's
not
run like your old school cable lines coming off the phone pole. It's going from this building to that building over the top.
Jeff, we were one of the first to have fiber for the school wise, which put us in a great position years ago. But now, that particular line that goes to that building, to the BA's building is, it's just it's a nightmare because we're not responsible on either end, or sorry, we are responsible on both ends, but not in between. So really the only thing we pay, and we pay good money for, is to make sure, that line is there basically, but we're responsible for everything else. So
yeah, the termination. There might be some other solutions with that though. I hate to be held hostage.
I know, right?
PTD signs it. I deal with them for business too for 3 years, and I fight that battle too of trying to make that commitment, because if their service, there's not much competition. So when you finally get someone that can come in and you can get someone to hold up a service agreement, it's going to change. So do we have to make a decision on that like now, Karen? Is that what we have to decide? Like,
Yeah, just because we have to file our form. There's a form we have to file. It has to do with all of
And
this. With you,
actually, Karen, if you could just explain what E-rate does, or, like that it gives us extra money back, or,
Yeah, so E-rate posts a 470 form that goes out, and then we got the 3 bids in. We actually get money back off of our bill each month. So even though you're seeing the 1370 per month, it will be half of that, because we'll get 50% back from USAC. So they give us a discounted invoice, I guess you could call it.
and PTD is not, they won't consider a 1-year option or 1-year extension?
For this pricing, it was a 3-year option.
Yeah, that's how they get you on the pricing.
Okay.
All right. I just know there's a better option, and there's just time is crunching this right now. That's the problem.
Right.
Time to make the change. That fiber line can absolutely be replaced, but it's we need a little time.
It's been a discussion annually since I've been here.
Well,
What is the number? How much does it cost?
to run a fiber line?
Yeah.
I mean, if you just get a contractor, a fiber line's not that expensive. It's the terminations on both sides and just getting the provider to hook you up on it both ends. That's what I was asking, if we had a conduit somewhere that connected it. You can go aerial, but if there is any conduit between the buildings, you could just run it through that too. I used to do that stuff for a while. But my thought is maybe we look at that as an option and put that in the works for, for the next round, so we can have something in place done. We don't get held to a time frame of signing an agreement. That's why
I think, Jeff, you're right. The price of fiber right now is still coming down. So
yeah, it's not that difficult for the right person to do it. They're holding us hostage because it's in place and there's timeliness to it.
Right.
And I just don't like to be held hostage. But that's why I was asking if there's a shorter. Do we know what the difference is? It a big difference to go to a 2-year agreement or something less, just to see what that transition would look like? But
at this point, the bid from all the companies was at 36 months.
All 36 months.
Yeah.
All right. I think we can note it's a future plan. I think fiber should be the main source of everything, pretty much. And we may even need more bandwidth at that point too, for other stuff that's happening. But
I don't think we can go, and I may be misspeaking for Carlos, but I don't think we can go higher than what we're getting for after the 1 gig.
Yeah. For now.
Right.
Karen, do you remember what the monthly charge was for the other bid from, is it whoever the other company was, Planet or something?
But yeah.
I don't, I can get it, if you want to hold on a second. I think I have it somewhere on my computer.
We've got someone in the chat from.
Oh, I didn't even have chat up for the meeting.
Oh, no, I didn't either.
Robert Boyle from Planet Networks is here. Could we ask him that question if he's here with us? John?
Well, I don't know if we have questions for him right now, but Karen was just trying to pull up the bid.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find the file in my email.
Yeah, no worries.
I was just trying to get a order of magnitude, Karen, if it was slightly less per month or how much different the cost was.
Yeah, yep.
Karen, does this have to be executed tonight or could it be in the April meeting?
Actually, I just found it.
Oh, you
I
have
think-
it, Kath?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Um,
I'm pulling mine up too in a second, but if you have it before me,
price of eligible product and services total.
Yeah.
So it looks like I don't actually know what the figure represents, but the Pentel data was 89.16 and Planet
Okay.
is 70.
right. So they weight different things to come up with a full value as far as how to weight each of the vendors. So
Oh, right.
Pentel, so they come up with a factor. So one is prior experience. The other was the package complete, and then the other was the price available, the price of eligible products. So they combine those three things and then they weight them to get a total kind of amount. So Pentel data for this is for half a gig, but I think we had talked about, Matt, we're hoping to go with the gig, correct? Which is what I have here. So for Pentel data, it's 50,877 and Planet was 43,164.
But with Planet, we would need the fiber connection.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that was the issue with the fiber line.
Did we ask him to propose that, or we just didn't?
That was not part of this bid.
Okay.
I think because with, I don't think it was something that could happen immediately.
And Jeff, we very rarely, well, it's hard, when I was at Fredon, we didn't, that was just like, okay, we have that Pentel data line. We're stuck with it.
Right.
We never had an option,
That's right.
at that point. So now we do. It's interesting to see.
So
Yep.
Mr. Boyle posted in the chat that they provide the line. I don't know if he's clear on what the line you're talking about. So Matt, Karen, how do you want to move forward on this? Because it looks like you've got a bit of a time critical issue to get this decided. Do we want to open it up and revisit it in any way?
Can you guys see the chat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have
What's
to-
what's the absolute deadline on this? It's this week.
Yeah.
This week.
We have to just be careful though, because I don't know about the ethical rules between, having one person that bid something for us at the meeting on a chat offering information about the bid and us maybe making a decision based on that. I want to be a little careful about that. Not that I'm opposed to either party and saving money by all means, but Matt, Karen, any guidance on how we should move forward with this?
Is this something that you can go back out with, Karen, and with a little more research and retro it in April, or no?
I think the issue was our Form 470 that that has to be filed. Like, I think that was the
That's
time crunch.
That's part of a board resolution.
Yeah.
Um, so instead of putting it back out, could you ask for quick clarity in the agreement itself?
So as far as what sort of clarity, Jeff, would you be referring to?
The stuff that might be being put into chat, it was clarified in the formal agreement. So instead of putting it back out, asking for clarification, and then finalizing the decision. So it was apples to apples.
I mean, if the line between the buildings is replaced by Planet at no charge, would that have altered, if you knew that, would that have altered the decision on who to go with?
So for me, I would have to ask Carlos because that's not my area of expertise.
It would have to
Okay,
be charged initially and no monthly charge to make it.
Right.
To
So,
make it a while.
so I guess our choice is approve what's on the agenda, or try to approve something that gives you flexibility to maybe research it more and then choose. I don't know. I'm not sure what's necessary in terms of resolution to get this done in time.
I'm not sure that we can, even if we got clarity on it, because it wouldn't be right now. It's not apples for apples anyway.
That's right.
So I do know that, we rely heavily on that E-rate funding, and that's not something we could, lose. Let's put it that way, by not filing in time. So I don't know that, we have a way out of this. Maybe in the future we do, but it's things like this when we have an opportunity to, see who's in the market, we should absolutely 100% go after it, because that's where we can save money, and it looks like we're going to need to save some money. So
Maybe, or your only other option is to go with the lowest bid and hope there's no hidden cost.
right, and I don't know that that's any better of an option at this point. So
Well, here's the thing. So, like, John, I know you were saying, we have ethics rules. I'm 100% in line, but like, again, you got two bids and one of them was lower on the initial bid. There's nothing rigged. There's no bid rig. We're talking about like the initial bid was lower, and now there's some, something's unclear about what the actual terms were. We're saying we can't get clarity to distinguish those two initial bids better.
Well, look what was just posted in the chat, right? The line between the buildings was not part of the bid, but he's happy to provide it at no charge. So I to me, and again, don't get me wrong, I'm all for saving money, but that wasn't clear for whatever reason when the bid was received, and the other company does not have a chance to offer something up to make their bid more attractive, right? I don't know.
What's the difference in pricing we're talking about now, the way it sits?
I think from what you guys spent, it's
About
7,000.
7,000
Yeah. It is
7,000.
significant.
Yeah,
Over 36
over
months.
3 years.
yeah, over 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I know who I want to go with, but I've been held hostage too long from them.
Could we do a quick special meeting on Wednesday after we have answers?
We don't have time to advertise and turn it around.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, let's decide. So I'm okay, Matt, Karen, if you guys think that we can just change to Planet based on it being a lower cost bid, even if we had to absorb the cost of replacing the fiber line, because we're hearing now that, at least from Kathy anecdotally, that it may have been problematic in the past. But, what do you guys think? Let's not make this hard on ourselves. Karen, Matt?
Personally, I don't think it would cost us that much money to run the line from our school to up the hill. I mean, and that's like anecdotal again. I haven't spent a huge amount of time looking into it, but I can't see that being the major obstacle. And again, I understand they got it running up and around, but there's got to be a way for us to do that.
I think procedurally, this is what was on the agenda, but you were presented with the 3 bid numbers. And if you guys just as a board decide to go with the lowest bid, I think procedurally you could probably do it.
Well, I guess that was the point I was kind of trying to make is, I can't see us getting into a bad spot going with the lowest bid, despite, that one apprehensive point. You know what I mean? So
Matt, I forget now, but didn't one of the emails say that, that I guess from you or Karen, when we factored in the cost of replacing the line, it brought it higher. Where did that quote for replacing the line come from? Or is it an estimate?
I think it was a cost estimate. I think that was a conversation between Karen and Carlos.
Okay.
Right. That's Carlos had said that, and that I don't have, my expertise is not in that. So he's
Sure.
our IT person. So I was listening to what he was saying regarding that.
I could tell you, I believe it was Kittatinny. Oh, somebody else in our region definitely went with Planet.
Is there a way we can reword the resolution to give you the flexibility to go either way based on revisiting, getting the line replaced?
After confirming it's the lowest bid, something along those lines.
yeah, that's a good way to go.
Yeah, we could still get our USAC funding in, right?
I mean, this resolution, specifically names Pentel Data. Does the resolution have to name the provider, Karen? Do you know?
It did, because once you do, you have to sign the contract with them. So that was the
But does the resolution giving Karen permission to go to the lowest bidder, does that cover it?
Well, if we said to go with the lowest bidder, either Pentel or Planet, based on, our discussions in the meeting, then would that not cover it?
Yeah, we already have. Very well.
What do you think, Karen? It's a procedure thing.
So I guess my concern, and this is just, Carlos thought it was more of a big deal. I just don't know. So I mean, we'll go with whatever the board wants to do. He made it out like it was more difficult than I'm understanding it to be. So I guess that was the concern here. But I'm trying to think how we can rephrase
Karen,
it here.
can I ask when the Karen, can I ask when the contract ends for Pentel Data?
So, well, the contracts, the new
Is it
contract is
July 1st?
So did they put in the agreement,
Okay.
the time frame?
So we have time for that line.
correct. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that would give you time to get the line installed or.
Yep. I just want to make sure there's enough time if there is a transition to get it done.
Right.
Can we talk to Carlos real quick?
Dial them up. Let's go.
Phone a friend.
Get some stuff done.
Um,
It's a good opportunity. It is like it's a good opportunity to make some change here.
I'll call Carlos. If you want to, maybe there's something else you can proceed. So we're not holding up the whole meeting here. If you can proceed a little bit, table it and come back.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
Yeah, because we have to get to the public question wording also. So let's do that. So can I have a motion to table item H of the finance agenda for now?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
And then Karen, a roll call on that motion just to table that,
Okay.
and we'll presumably table it till later in the meeting.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Lobb,
Yes.
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mrs. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Kapler,
Yes.
Mr. Nemes.
Yes. All right. Any other questions or comments on the rest of the finance agenda?
No.
Okay. Roll call on that, Karen?
Okay. Mr. Kapler,
Yes.
Mr. Lobb,
Yes.
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mrs. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Nemes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Buildings and grounds, it looks like there's no items on the agenda for that. Any reports from any of the other board associations, Sussex County School Boards, or the Ed Services?
The big one, John, was the meeting with the consortium,
Okay.
which we both went to. Do you want to?
Yep. Yeah, if you want to fill people in on that, that'd be great.
All right. So John and I both attended consortium meeting, KRHS districts, and Hutchinson was there, superintendent from Stillwater and Sanderston. We were mainly talking about, apologies, other board presidents were also there. We were talking about the consolidation and regionalization topic that's kind of floating around pretty heavily. So there's a new bill, S488, and basically what, I would say the majority of the board presidents were looking to do was to explore the possibility of a feasibility study in our region. So not necessarily jumping into anything, but at this point, just exploring the possibility of feasibility for consolidation, and pretty much the number one crux of the big issue obviously is cost per pupil. So small districts have a tougher time managing cost per pupil. On average, cost per pupil is much higher in those small districts as opposed to districts with more kids and a number of schools underneath them. So, Kittatinny as a larger group, we do already have a curricular consortium. We share curriculum with a number of the other schools. Right now we have, 3 superintendents between each of the different buildings. Matt's going to be on his way out, and we're, already looking, or we were talking about even sharing. So it just seems like a natural kind of thing to at least explore. So what we were looking to do was maybe get some support once again, just to explore the possibility of getting a feasibility study. The money for the feasibility study would be, paid for by the state. It wouldn't be something out of pocket. We would then have the study done and have a number of answers to all kinds of questions regarding this subject. One more time, this is exploratory, it's investigative, looking to just due diligence, looking at all options for the taxpayers in the school districts. So what we'd like to do is, and we don't have to do this time around, we can certainly discuss it, but look to approve a motion that the Board of Ed supports the possible participation in a regionalization feasibility study for the Kittatinny cluster of schools, so long as the feasibility study is paid for by a local achievement efficiency program that's a LEAP grant, or by the approved Senate Bill S-3488 and the agreement among the majority of regional school districts.
So move. Let's do it.
I'm comfortable there. I was wondering if any other thoughts. Kathy, you look apprehensive.
No, I think we should explore all opportunities, but you don't have a let's do it
Jeff?
from me, okay?
I don't know. I just question why.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not even our expense, but still, why?
Yeah, I think it's just to have the answers, to know a little bit more about what it could look like and the different scenarios and the cost benefit analysis to doing something like that. Because it's been a topic of conversation for a long time, and here you have money being offered to do it, money being offered to look into it.
Yeah, it's my concern though. There's a reason. It's like I'm being set up for. I mean, I'm all about trying to save money, taxes, and everything else too. But at some point, does it hurt our town as well? Never mind. When someone starts paying something for you, you got to start wondering why.
Right.
Which is my thought.
And there's an awful lot to this topic, right? Because first of all, the study would presumably take a fairly long time to be done. So it's not something that would impact or affect or help in the immediate future. And it's not even obvious that it would save money, right? There's a lot of factors to consider. But like Ben said, this is really more about, does our board and our district approve of participating in the feasibility study itself? Not do we approve with regionalization. It's certainly not something that I think makes sense for the district at this point. But I don't know if we want to vote on that motion tonight or not. But Arnie, you did make the motion by moving it. So if somebody seconds it, then we can discuss it and vote on it. I'm not sure I would necessarily do that tonight, but if somebody wants to second it, we can go that route.
Well, one of the other big reasons that Kittatinny High School kind of pushed this more than anybody is just due to the fact that it could potentially help them with their state aid situation to some degree.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if I actually said it, but I think I sent something out via email at one point. But the state aid reduction could get stretched out from the next 3 years to like the next 7 years. Or, I guess they were talking about from 4 to 8. But like Karen, you had said, like, we're really looking at 3 more reductions in state aid, right? So again, like the next 7 years, so that could get stretched out. So I know Kittatinny's getting slashed pretty bad. If all districts file the motion like we're recommending, or at least like I brought to you, that could help them just by doing the study. It could end up potentially helping them in that state aid issue.
But it doesn't help our state aid?
It could help our state aid too, in the same sense, like our state aid could get stretched out. It's just less of an issue with us just because we have, it's a smaller chunk of money, and, theirs is just massive. The amount of money that they're losing is astronomical compared to, what we're losing.
Yeah, Kittatinny's, right, they're losing on the order of $900,000 from their state aid. It's enormous.
Right.
So, like we mentioned before during the budget presentation and after, yeah, our school is really financially sound. We're in a really good place, a really responsible budget. We're just properly funded, and we're sound. And we're not relying on a lot of state aid, which has been troubling over the years because the taxpayer picks up the bulk of our expenses. But now with state aid cuts, our cuts aren't that big because we get not a lot of aid, right? So,
Right.
Yeah.
But the other districts, so Kittatinny, the other districts in the region are getting hit pretty hard. But so there's a lot more to this topic, but I think though, supporting the initiative doesn't commit us to anything, but it does help out our neighbor, right? Because if it helps them extend their state aid over a few years rather than more years than just the 3, that is a big help to them. And even to all the taxpayers, right? Because either they're going to have to cut programming or, raise taxes to make up for that or some combination thereof. And so everybody's going to get hit by that and hit hard. There's been a lot of focus on our district, but the eyes are on the wrong prize, right? We are not the problem district financially.
No, but just years ago when this was a conversation, many years ago, it was always about how big the expense was to do it. The way I look at it is there's a reason they're looking to take away this expense. They take away the objection. They get to do a study. They get to take the study. They turn it into what they need to then have the next level of recommendations. Anytime it's offered that way, I know there's an agenda behind it.
Well, that's definitely one way to look at it. I think my bigger thing would just be after seeing a couple feasibility studies. They are extremely large in detail. There's going to be, it's going to be a probably 200-page long document, and it's going to have population projections. It's going to look at possible administrative structures. It's going to be possible, different ways that we can do this, maintaining some of our own autonomy within like the larger district and stuff. So I think there's going to still be a lot of options. I think the one thing it will provide more than anything is just going to be some answers. Because we keep having these conversations about it, whether it be in the county or here or, in the consortium. And there's just, there aren't any answers. It's always just talking about doing the study. So I kind of feel like you do the study, you have something concrete that you can at least look at and you can discuss. And then again, like the other thing this time around with that bill, there might be advantages as far as with some of the debt service stuff. That was always another big obstacle. One town would have to consume another town's debt, and it doesn't look like that's going to be as much of an issue this time around too. So I think we really should at least like explore it. At least
Why wouldn't that be an issue, Ben?
Well, I guess it wouldn't be so much for. We have the bond service debt, but Stillwater I don't think has any. So they never wanted to talk about doing anything.
And your teachers would have to be paid. There's also that side of it as well. So,
Sure. Yeah.
And it's not like we haven't, I don't think we've, done a feasibility study, but, there's been talk, I just wonder going down this path, is this, are we showing agreement in just looking at it? Or is this something where we can just turn around and say, okay, it all makes sense, but that's not what our town wants. And we're not going to accept, the situation from other towns.
Yeah, well, the motion, we would be approving a motion. It would read something like this. This is what Kittatinny, I believe, just passed. Motion to approve the Board of Ed's support and possible participation in a regionalization feasibility study. So right there it says possible participation in.
Okay.
Just the feasibility study for the Kittatinny cluster of schools, so long as the feasibility study is paid for by the LEAP grant or by approval of Senate Bill S3488 and the agreement among the majority of regional school districts. The other thing is one district can approve it. So technically Kittatinny can do this on their own without us. And I'm pretty sure they could stretch out their state aid reduction and then we would just be left to fend for ourselves on that one. So again, like they want the schools to do this as a larger group, but the feasibility study may get done regardless if they decided to just unilaterally do it. I kind of just see there being nothing to lose. You're getting information, whether you choose to act on it or, you know, the public, you know, gets that information and they can understand.
Yeah, I tend to side a bit more, I think, if I understood where Jeff was coming on this, because and once that study is done, there may be assumptions or things that may be assumptions upon which the study is based, or it may be performed in a way that leads towards a certain conclusion that we may not agree with, because we may not, you know, agree with the assumptions and or how the study was done, and there may be a lot of pressure then to comply with the study.
Yep.
So I think we should move carefully here. I think someone said, right, Ben, that there was a study done in a South Jersey district that might have just finished, and maybe we could get a handle, you know, copy of that study and see what it even looks like to begin with.
Well, there's only one school district in New Jersey that was ever consolidated. That was South Hunterdon, right?
No, there's many others. South Hunterdon was the latest, and right now there's a feasibility study that's happening based on this initiative, this legislative initiative. It's Salem County as a whole, the entire Salem County went through a feasibility study, and that report should be published anytime now because it's done. But that's the latest. But there's been many school districts that have regionalized. Many is a strong word. There's definitely examples of school districts that have regionalized. South Hunterdon is just the latest.
Hey, Arn, can I ask, if you don't mind, your strong opinion of it, just so I can hear your perspective?
Yeah, we got nothing to lose. Let's get the information. We're all sitting here afraid of something. Let's learn what we're afraid of.
Well, I don't know if it's afraid. I'm not afraid of them. What I'm concerned is being set up for a study that gets skewed one way, that sets us up in a favorable way that says, now you should encourage to be doing it. Then they throw more money at us to do it and force us down that path. So, you know, studies could get spun in a lot of ways. I'm always concerned about who does it. And the results come out saying you should consolidate. Now what?
There's a lot of parts to that study, I think, that could help us too, like getting to one superintendent for the 4 schools. It's not just about eliminating a school. There is room for improvement in the whole system. Let's put it that way.
I don't doubt that. Yeah, I would.
Who's going to deny that? Let these people show us a way to improve it.
I do believe the region is who hires. It's typically law firms that complete these feasibility studies, and I do believe it's the school boards that hire the law firm. So you would have some say over it. You know, it's not just like a public defender, right? That it's provided for you. I do believe that you would have the choice, and Porzio is the firm that's doing it for Salem County at this time.
All right, cool. Thanks. I just wanted to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I'm just getting tired now too, Jeff. There's way too many words at this time of night. We got to go.
I hear you, bud.
Sorry. I'll talk to you in the morning. I'll call you first thing in the morning if you want to get back into it.
No, I'm good. I just.
All right. So personally, I would prefer that we did not move on this tonight, but instead, if we got a copy of the Salem study, if that's available, we could all take a look at that and see what it looks like and give this some more thought. But if somebody wants to make a motion, you are, of course, welcome to do that. So.
Well, I'm not comfortable making a motion or seconding a motion if, you know, other people need more info, or maybe we just need time to look at it a little bit more and understand what we're voting for. So again, like, just bringing it to your attention because we did have the meeting. There's definitely some interest. There's definitely some apprehension. So I understand it on both sides. So maybe we'll take a month here and get our ducks in a row and think about this one more time next meeting.
Okay. That sounds good. All right. In the interim, Matt, did you get any info from Carlos on that line?
All right. So what he stated was his only apprehension was the actual fiber line, because like you guys have discussed it, they've been holding that over our head, quite literally, actually, pun intended. And then but also where it comes into the building, the equipment where the fiber line comes into the building is owned by Pentel Data. So if that equipment can be replaced, so basically, if that line can be run and connected inside our buildings with free of charge, then he has no reservations regarding that. The only thing is there's a little bit of work that has to be done. We have to time it properly because that going with a new provider would provide us with all new IP addresses, and we would just have to resync our systems like the Mashios cash register and the camera system and things like that. But that's just some IT work right there. But it takes a little bit of time. So he said if basically if the equipment and the line can be run at no charge, then he has no reservation. Going with the lowest bidder. That was his, and then it's also bid at 1 gig, which I believe it is, Karen, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was apples to apples. It was just the equipment thing.
Okay. So Karen, with that, are you comfortable? Do you want to tell us what you want to do with that resolution? Do you want to leave it as is, or do you want to change Pentel for Planets?
I would, are you asking me, John?
Yep.
I would change Pentel for Planet then.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
Well, you would just have to adjust the figures in the but you don't have to do that math tonight. Like you'd have to look back. If the board would just have to, they would just trust you with running the numbers there because it's specific to the 1370 and the 3325.
Correct. I would just get that updated.
Okay. All right. Can I have a motion to approve item H that was previously tabled based on a 36-month contract with Planet and the dollar amounts that Karen will enter based on the quote that's already been received?
Is it still 36 months
Yes.
with Planet? Yes. Okay. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay. All right. Karen, roll call.
Okay, Mr. Lobb,
Yes.
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mrs. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Kapler,
Yes.
Mr. Nemus.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So continue with the agenda. Correspondence, I don't think there's any. Old business, none. The only other item I think on the agenda, well, there were two, but one is on the wording of the public question. So I emailed everybody over the weekend. I sent you an email on Saturday. I don't know if you guys have that handy that you could pull that up. So we need to decide on the wording that's going to be on the ballot for the public question. I think that the typical wording is something like, right, resolve there should be raised for the general fund a dollar amount for the ensuing school year, right? As a minimum, I thought that question should identify that the general fund the money being raised for is for the Fredon school local tax levy. So I would want to at least see that wording put in. And then I thought it made sense to put some context around that, because if people see a ballot and all it says, do you vote for this $4.2 million amount? They don't know if that's an increase, a decrease, what that represents. And so I think to help the voter be informed, it makes sense to have some context around that. So I had a couple different options on interpretive statements. One was saying that the dollar amount, the 4.2 million, represents a flat, no increase or decrease Freedom School local tax levy versus the immediate prior year. Another option might be to say that that dollar amount represents the 5th consecutive year of a decreasing or flat Freedom School tax levy. And the third option I put in the email might be even more involved. You're being asked to approve or reject the Freedom School tax levy of this dollar amount, which represents the 5th consecutive year of a decreasing or flat local tax levy. A majority voting no will reject this resolution and cause the Freedom School budget to go to the Freedom Town Council, who may propose cuts to the budget. A majority voting yes will pass this resolution and establish this as the tax levy for the Freedom School for the coming year. So, Arnie, I get that it's late. Sorry that it is this late, but I think that we should try to push through this and settle on.
Sure. I like the third one, not the last one.
Sorry, the third one. So you did not
Just the
like the
last
last one that was extra long?
Correct.
So the one in between, saying that the $4.2 million represents the 5th consecutive year of a decreasing or flat Freedom School tax levy.
I think that tells the story.
Okay.
I personally like the longer one, number 3, option 3. You know, it's very difficult for us to get our message out, and this is an opportunity. So, you know, I don't know if it's the right form, but I think it's important that, you know, we get this message out. What, you know, consequence, all of it. So.
Jeff, Ben, thoughts?
I like 3.
Sorry, 3 is
Option
the longest one.
correct. Option 3. Yeah, it's labeled option 3. Yes, the longest one. Yeah.
And Ben?
I mean, I like the intent of 3. I'd like to cut some of the wordiness out just a little bit,
Okay.
but we're here and we're voting. I go with option 3.
No, I mean, I'm happy to try to reword things. That's fine. But I do.
Just a little more concise. I'm completely okay with the intent.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe it's factual, but I am concerned about, you know, mentioning the town council in there.
Well, it says may, not shall. It says may.
I understand. I mean, I think regardless, you know, we're going to get a lot of hate on that, which is just really frustrating. But
Well, then honestly, we could just leave it alone too. So raise a general fund local tax levy. I mean, everybody knows what is going on and what this is all about. So you're either voting for the school budget or you're not.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think a lot of people understand.
Right.
Not the people I talk to. They don't have a clue.
yeah, I mean, there's only 30 people at the meeting tonight, you know, so how many people are really informed? I don't know.
They don't have a clue.
I don't think anybody's changing their mind when they get in there though, either.
Now, I don't know, Matt, if you've gotten any guidance or if we should even seek guidance from Nathania on this wording.
I'm assuming she would say it's a board decision. I haven't gotten any guidance. I had 2 pending matters with her over the weekend, haven't heard back. So,
Well, this isn't the question. This is the interpretive statement, correct?
Well, so I think Karen and Matt, what you got back from the county was a simple one-liner: resolve that there should be raised for the general fund, 4.2 million for the ensuing school year.
the dollar
Right.
figure, yeah.
That was it. I really don't feel like that's adequate. So I am proposing we expand on that and or add an interpretive statement. I don't know if the county would let us. I don't know if they have the authority to not allow us to do that. I don't know how that works.
Well, there are medium places too. Option 1 is really very clear. So if you just pulled back and went to number 1, you're stipulating a flat, no increase or decrease Fredon School local tax levy versus last year. That's very clear. And there's no, there's no room for any of this stuff you're getting nervous about. I'm comfortable. I mean, I'm comfortable with really either way. I just don't think it changes anything at that point,
No, but I mean, I really also do want the vote to be fair, right? I don't want us to be perceived as trying to tip the scales one way or the other, especially with regard to a vote.
Wait, John, I don't understand what you mean by that. You mean that we're tipping the scales?
Well, I don't want us to be perceived as tipping the scales, right? With an interpretive statement that others might feel is slanted.
I think it's fact, right?
I think
it's
it is.
It's not interpretive even. It's complete fact. So I'm not sure how we could. I think it's necessary in the fact that not besides the 30 people that were on here tonight, I don't think anybody else knows what's going on, and I don't feel like, in particular, our seniors or are well represented and understand even what's going on besides this. So
Yeah.
I think this gives us an opportunity to speak to them as well, because they will take that interpretive statement and read it. I'm sure of that. So
Okay. So is there a general consensus to perhaps try to get option 3 on the ballot? And if it's rejected either legally or meaning like if Nathaniel, our attorney, says, it's improper language, or if the county says it's improper language, we just back off to the next option 2. And if that doesn't work, option 1. If that doesn't work, we go back to 0. I'm trying to reach a point where we can move forward, get this on the ballot in some form, and not have to reconvene a meeting to decide it, right? I don't want to end this conversation with just one option. So,
well, just leave it. All right. How about this? Go option 3 and leave it the first sentence. The first sentence of option 3. You are being asked to approve or reject the Fredon School local tax levy of, which represents the 5th consecutive year of decreasing or flat Fredon School local tax levy. One sentence.
That's the same thing as number 2.
Well, it combines. Doesn't it combine the 0, like the decrease, along with the 5th consecutive year? So it puts the no increase or decrease in there with the 5th consecutive year, doesn't it? Because it says flat, decreasing or flat. You're putting together the decreasing or flat and the 5th consecutive year, and you're just leaving that in the one sentence.
But yeah, I know. We'll have another go. The reality is that if I reject it, no one knows what happens if they reject it. I reject it. Now what? No one knows.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
That's the problem. So what? I mean, they have the right to reject it. That's totally fine. That's fair. But no one knows what the hell happens. I reject it. Now what? Because they don't like it, or they see a number they don't like. They have no idea. And I think there should be obviously we want them to be advised, but Some people other questions on other ballots. I swear I've read it 10 different ways and I couldn't understand it myself.
That's a good argument, Jeff. I don't know. I see your point.
No, I actually agree with that too. I remember the last vote that was out. I had people asking me, I don't know what yes means and I don't know what no means. It's so in our heads, we get it, but it's not super clear.
It's not. If you approve, I get it, you approve. But if you reject it, what does that mean? Does it go to somebody else? Does it go where? What happens? Oh,
Yep.
No one knows. We got to do a better job educating people. It's not swaying. It's just telling people what happens.
All right, let's vote.
Okay. Who wants to go first? Arnie? What's your choice?
Yeah, number 3 is fine.
Ben?
Number 3.
Kathy?
3.
Jeff?
3.
Same for me. And can we have agreement that if that's not allowed for whatever reason, you'll give myself, Matt, and Karen, and Ben, if we can have 2 board members, the option to pare down the wording to something that is acceptable to the county, and et cetera?
Yeah.
You guys will go with that so we can proceed and get this done?
Yeah,
Arnie?
well, just with the understanding of trying to make an explanation of yes or no. That's all.
Yeah,
Doesn't the decision have to be made by the county as well?
that's what we're not sure about because it's our election, Karen, right? I mean, it's our election.
So can we say the budget go to the Freedom Council and what do you call it? Sussex County Board of Ed?
No, it would only go to them for approval, for final approval. They wouldn't have any kind of say.
The point I'm trying to make is that they could propose whatever they want, and then the county can say, this is ridiculous. No.
No,
I want to make that point somewhere.
you would appeal to the state commissioner of education, say that you can't run a school district on those cuts.
Something of what you just said, Matt. Go to the Freedom Council and then the state commissioner because you can't make those cuts.
I think there's a lot of assumptions in that statement. But that is the protocol. I mean, I'm sorry, it's the board's decision. That's the protocol.
I think then it's starting to get way too wordy, Arnie, if we do that.
Yeah, sure, done. Go.
All right. If you guys have second thoughts or other subtleties when we wake up and are more refreshed, email it to myself. But absent that, so Ben, you and I will work with Matt and Karen to try to get this cleaned up and put on the ballot. Okay.
Agreed.
All right. What else? So I had wanted Kathy to talk to us about the topic of alternate communication platforms. Kathy, can we table that again? I'm sorry, but would you mind maybe put out an email to the board and just kind of maybe summarize some of the options you've encountered? So the idea is to really find maybe just understand what the alternatives are for how the board can communicate to the public in a fair and balanced way. And school has a Facebook page, Twitter account, whatever. And Kathy, you could just send something out to give us some background on that, and we can try to move on that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I think the only other topic we have to go into executive, but let's see. So future meeting dates. I guess the next meeting is the 26th. Is that schedule still correct? I believe it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then public comment. So let's go through that. When recognized by the president, please state your name and address prior to commenting. All meetings at which the board transacts official business must be public. Meetings of the board are conducted for the purpose of carrying on the business of the school and therefore not public meetings, but meetings held in public. Once the president closes oral communication, no other questions or comments will be permitted. So there's a few people on still. Any other public comment to be made? Give folks a minute. Okay. No hands up, I guess. All right, we'll close public comment. And we are going to go into executive session. We will not be taking action after. And we're going to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters. So, whereas pursuant to standard, the Board of Ed may exclude the public from the portion of a public meeting in which the board discussed any of the matters described in statute. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Ed shall enter closed session at, I guess, 11 p.m. to discuss personnel matters. Can I have a motion to go into executive session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, Karen?
Mr. Olson,
Yes.
Mrs. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Kepler,
Yes.
Mr. Lob,
Yes.
Mr. Nemus.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So how do we do this, Matt? I mean, I don't know if folks plan to stay on, but when we come back, we are not going to be taking action. We'll be closing the meeting. But if folks want to stay on, I guess, Matt, if you put them in a